Remember, Chris, don't talk for 15 seconds.
Okay, we are live now, I believe. Just one more second. Okay, we are live.
All right. Well, we will, it is 1:03. We'll officially call the meeting to order. So this is our regular scheduled meeting. Obviously, we got most of the stuff done last week, so it should be a pretty quick, easy meeting. First thing on the agenda is financials, I believe. I'm trying to pull it up now. Mr. Brian, you want to go over the financials there for your first financial report?
All right, we're going to do that before meeting minutes.
Oh, minutes. I forgot minutes. Sorry. I'm trying to pull the agenda up and I couldn't remember what was first. So my bad. I got it open now. So yeah, minutes are first. So everybody get a chance to review the minutes Megan sent out. Do we have any questions on those? Anything needs to be changed?
I would just say, let's add Steve Irvin's first name as an attendee.
Okay.
I think we just have him as Irvin.
Sorry, victim of copying and pasting, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's
That's all right.
I go by Irvin.
Irvin.
Just put the Steves on there. We'll
That's
know.
his street name. Okay.
It looks like Matt. Yeah, let's see here.
We'll make that small adjustment. Anything else? Anybody else see anything? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the July 1st minutes.
I'll make that motion.
There we go. Brian's got the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Chris. We'll go through a roll call. Megan,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So passes unanimously. Number 3, financial report. Now Brian's turn.
All righty. The last deposit that was made was $32,359.97. We also we spent $21 for QuickBooks Online. So our balance now is $486,212.19. For the year, we've received $491,708.49 in deposits. We've spent $5,496.30. That's pretty much it.
We're doing pretty well in income versus expenses right now, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Very
next
low
thing,
amount deposit, isn't it? 32,000 is the very low amount deposit, isn't it?
And for that was for a month. That was for tax receipts in March or April.
That's for the
I believe May. The 32,000.
no, May would be in the July.
Yes, that was for April. And last year, if I remember correctly, that was like $100,000 for tax receipts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's missing the quilt show right there.
Yeah. And we're not going to have a quilt show this year. So obviously we're not going to get that income back.
Yep.
Right.
You know, which is going to make what we're doing at the convention center even more important, that hopefully we can get some overnight guests there and obviously build up some hotel rooms on our own. Brian and AJ and I have been in talk with Ashley. She was coming to Paducah today to meet with AJ so we can get checks and debit cards and all that stuff from her, and as well getting Brian access to QuickBooks. Supposedly the budget's done, but I can't see it in QuickBooks, so she's supposed to give him the proper rights to see it, which would help make everybody's life a lot easier. So I can actually report on that budget soon, and then we can get that turned into the state for Kent. And then we'll just hopefully get a letter of resignation soon. So like Kent said, we can get the new person in here that's going to take her spot and allow them to be able to vote on all the big decisions about to come up. So,
Jim,
It already filed it.
do what, AJ?
Jim, the application has already sent to the Judge Clymer.
I don't
You
believe
guys
so.
could-
We haven't received her official letter of resignation, so I don't think any of that
Okay.
happened until we get that letter.
Hey, AJ, when you meet with her, could I suggest that you just ask where she is on the resignation and maybe request that she just send an email to the commission notifying us that that she will be or is resigning, or what date
Yeah,
she?
sure. So email is okay.
Yeah, just just some written communication evidencing the date on which she is resigning.
Yeah,
Okay.
email's fine. So
okay,
And
I do have a question. I have
Go
a
ahead,
question on QuickBooks. The $21 charge, I'm assuming that is a monthly charge for QuickBooks Online.
I believe that is
Yes.
correct.
Yep.
And AJ, when you talk to Ashley, if you can get the login, password and everything for QuickBooks, that would be a big help.
Sure. Will do.
And Kent, a question for you. If I remember correctly, some of the board members had a 1-year term to start with, and that would expire in August, I think, of next month.
Yes, I need to look back because you remember there was some issue with the appointments, and so some were reappointed, and I can't remember if that extended it to a little bit later or not. But I will look and make sure so that we can get that to the fiscal court, to Judge Clymer, to make those reappointments in time to make sure there's continuity on the commission.
Well, I think Ashley was one of those 1-year terms, so I don't know if that's something we need to, how that
believe she
reappointment
was.
goes. Was that right, Steve?
Yeah, she was, and I believe there's 2 others. I got that information yesterday from the judge's office.
I am one of
that-
them, and
Yeah.
Josh is the one of them. The
Yeah, AJ
hotels,
and Josh.
I believe that is,
yes.
Yeah,
So
Megan and I were
hotels-
2 years, and Chris and Brian were 3.
and I believe that's till October, but I'm on that right now.
Very
Okay,
good.
thank you, sir.
But then, like, whenever the reappointments come up, they can then be 3 years at a time at that point, correct?
Potentially, yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
yes, the reappointments could be, yes.
Okay. But it was just, I guess it had to be that way because of state statute or something. to
Right,
start
right,
with?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so back on task. Any more questions for Brian on the financials? I need to throw that back up there. Is everybody good? Okay. Can I get it? Brian, you'll make a motion to accept financial report?
Yes.
Brian makes the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I think Josh beat you there, so second by Josh. Let's go through roll call. Josh?
Yeah.
Caught you mid-drink. Chris?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
AJ?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Oh, I say yes too. My bad, Kent. And passes unanimously. So, all right, moving on. Contract approval for convention center. Did everybody get a chance to read the contract Kent sent to everybody? So I've been in contact with Michelle. I told her that contract has to be returned, signed before we're going to approve to buy volleyball, basketball equipment. Josh, last week in our meeting, I don't know if you got to watch it or anything. The convention center's needing us to buy the last little less than $90,000 worth of equipment they need to get started.
Okay.
we have the ability to add that into our bond that we're going through for the courts. We've already set the bid out on Sunday, so the original quote we had has a discount if we order by July 15th. So we went ahead and sent that bid out. Obviously, if we get any other bids, then we'll select which one we want to do. But we're still waiting on the actual contract with the convention center. So I reached out to Michelle, told her we weren't. I was like, look, we don't have this contract. By the time this bid's done, we're not going to accept a bid. I was like, and then it's kind of on you guys to go from there. So she assured me we're going to get it. Said Kent should have it today. They have approved it and everything is fine. It just has to be signed. Did anybody have any questions as far as the contract kit sent out?
How long is it for? I'm reviewing it right now. It's the one that they want to do is the PDF that you sent, Kent.
Yes, the PDF actually showed the ones with the changes in it, and the Word version was a clean execution copy of the contract. It's basically a yearly contract that automatically renews, and either party can terminate it on 6 months' notice. I mean, everybody expects that the contract will just continue rolling around, and that I would think at some point the commission will decide, well, this is working well. We don't need to be leasing these courts. Looks like the convention center is doing a good job of drawing in sport teams that will stay overnight. Let's just assign the courts to them so that they become the owners of them at some point. So,
Right.
Okay. Does it say anything about how often we will be getting reports from the Expo Convention Center as far
yes,
as
that happens on a
happening?
quarterly basis, and the convention center is required to tell us, on that quarterly basis, what they have already engaged in terms of signed contracts over the next period, and then they're required to tell us what they're working on in terms of potential tournaments, and then they have to share with us any problems they're encountering that would allow us to maybe work with them to help them do their job better. So yeah, we need to kind of calendar them, and it wouldn't be surprising if those dates kind of slip by unattended to. So we might want to put on our calendar to give them a reminder before those quarterly reports are due, so that we can have some idea of actually how they're doing.
Seems like a good job for the vice chair. It's just what I'm thinking, Ken. I mean,
remember, we're just shoving everything off on Steve Irvin now.
Oh,
right?
that's
so
okay.
yeah. So.
Because I know that I think there's been at least some handshake agreements on basketball and volleyball coming already, and so I think it'd be nice to kind of, if we want to have Michelle give a update sometime this month, and then say Q3 would be in the month of October or something along those lines. I think that's reasonable going forward.
Yeah.
I might say push that back a month, Chris, for Michelle, just so we can see what restrictions she's going to have for COVID, because I don't think she knows yet can she have any fans there? Can she only have some fans?
Right.
She's still waiting on that. It may be another month, but she truly knows.
Now, I believe on the high school side, they're planning on announcing something, I think no later than this Friday. I've heard that both from Michelle, some of my soccer referee friends, as well as Coach Whitus at McCracken County Volleyball. So hopefully we're going to know.
They meet yesterday, or was it?
They're meeting now, I think. So
Okay.
I've heard they're meeting this week with an announcement due on Friday.
Right.
So it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So that'll help dictate some of that, know what we can do and what we can't do, and kind of go from there. So
Have we received any bids in yet, Steve?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yogi did say he was going to put a bid in, so we're expecting that one.
Yeah, I think the hang up on that was because I went over Thursday morning at 8 a.m. and met with both Michelle and Yogi as far as finding out the difference between the different volleyball setups. And the difference was the complete setup comes with net and poles. They're reusing 7 of the nets and poles from the Sportsplex, and then double checking, but the hang up for, or the delay on getting the bid in is trying to get a good way of dividing the courts up whenever we're playing volleyball so that the ball from court 1 doesn't hit court 2 while they're playing, because that happens a lot with volleyball. And so try to find a more economical way of dividing up the courts. I think it's going to look something very similar to the folding curtains they have at the Sportsplex that is in Hopkinsville. So if anybody has played up there, they've got these blue hanging curtains and but how you mount those tracks to the roof and the proper way to handle that we're still trying to do some, what's the best solution on that. But looks like we're going forward on that. And the bid is going to be for a combination of getting enough for 4 courts for the hardwood, and then an additional bid to get the additional basketball goals and volleyball courts so we can put that onto the sport court as well. So that's why the bid is broken up into 2 different types of bids per Steve Urban's recommendation on that.
Chris, I may make a recommendation. When we get these bids in, we probably need to meet briefly with the Paducah Building Inspection Department since we're hanging these curtains. And just make sure that it's code compliant before we actually order them.
Okay. What would be wrong with the code on that?
But I think looking at the sprinklers, the lighting in there, I just want to make sure everything is right before we actually spend the money. There may not be a problem at all. I just want to make sure.
Okay. That's why we've got you here.
Exactly.
And one more thing I'll point out, not to delay things, but the quarterly reports that the convention center has to make are supposed to give us an estimate or good faith estimate of the number of room nights they expect each tournament to bring in. And for the ones that have occurred in the prior year, they're supposed to give us a good faith report of what they think were the room nights stayed by participants in those tournaments. So hopefully we'll have some basis for saying, yeah, this is what our efforts have accomplished in terms of what our mission is as a sports tourism commission. So.
Right. Okay. Any more questions on this contract? Ken, do we need a motion to approve it?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Hey guys, I have something for when the Michelle is setting up this tournament and talking to coach or even the websites or anything that's going to come up. I believe myself, and I would like to Josh with me to make sure that they put the right channel on it. They talk to the coach or anybody in the right direction, so the third party doesn't come in and then we try to get the direct business to the hotels. That's what's my plan.
So as far you're saying as far as booking the hotels, AJ?
Yeah, booking the hotels when she's setting up with the. I believe Michelle's jobs to talk to all the coaches and figure it out how many tournaments we're gonna do, or even going on the websites too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think her plan is to work with the CVB, to work, and I can't remember her name. Not
Linda.
one of the sales people there. What was her name?
Linda Peters.
Linda. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, Linda.
To work with Linda
Okay.
on kind of setting hotel rates for that using, however CVB typically does handle that situation. So I think Linda's kind of doing some work for both the CVB and Michelle and going to kind of coordinate that piece of it. So that should work out okay, I believe.
Okay.
Chris, you were talking a minute ago, but you're on mute. What'd you say?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. You said down your mouth was moving, so I thought maybe you had something to say.
I was drinking.
All right, no other questions. I will entertain a motion to accept the contract from the convention center.
Oh, I remember I was talking. Okay. Do we not want to wait to accept it until after they sign it?
Well, I think you can make your approval contingent on receipt of the signed agreement by the Convention Center Corporation. And I think we ought to make it effective. You know, there's a date to insert the effective date, the date that the bids went out on the portable hardwood courts, because we're relying on their approval of the specs for those hardwood courts as to what's going to work in there. So we want the agreement to be effective before those courts were ordered. So I assume Steve can give us that date to insert, but I think the motion should be that we approve, that the commission approves this lease agreement for the portable hardwood courts with the effective date as of the date the courts were ordered, and contingent upon receipt of the signed agreement by the convention center.
At what date do you need exactly?
Well, I just some date, either the date that the bids went out on the portable flooring.
Okay, the April 10th is when bids were due.
That's when bids were received.
Yes.
Or are you talking about the bid for the additional basketball courts and volleyball nets and stuff?
No, I'm talking about the bids for the actual flooring, because the way this is structured is we're relying on the convention center and Venue Works to tell us what they need. They're standing behind that. So it should be before the bids went out.
The bids went out on April 3rd.
Okay. So why don't we just make it April 1st as the effective date?
Okay.
And we need to attach the specs for the bid as Exhibit A to the agreement.
Do you want me to send that to you?
That would be great.
So we need to add this additional bid we're doing for the goals and stuff too as well, Kent?
I think that should be a separate motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need both motions today or? Well, no, never mind. You're talking about when we approve it once we get a bid, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have anything to approve now. We're just,
That's not gonna be
yeah.
today. So today we're just approving this contract. You know, once the convention center signs it, I guess myself and Ken will sign it at that point, or is it me and Megan?
Yes, you and Megan.
Okay.
And Megan, I'll send you some wording for the motion if that would help.
Please,
Because okay, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So does somebody want to make the motion with the wording Kent just said?
I make a motion for what Kent just said.
I will second that.
There we go. All right, let's go through a roll call of that motion there. Chris,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Josh.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so passes unanimously. All right, next on our agenda, any new business that we need to discuss that was not on the agenda?
Yep. Steve determined that on site 4 that there is an additional area there that could be included in that.
Is this, Brian, is this something that's going to disclose the site location?
Close enough.
Yeah, we can't talk about any specific
Yeah,
site.
okay.
Not in the executive session.
Well, I was just wanting a new layout if there is additional properties there.
Brian, I will call you.
There we go.
I didn't hear.
I said I will call you upon the conclusion of the meeting.
Good.
One thing I think we might want to discuss is, hey, can I look at my phone real quick? I was texting Norm and Sam with Pinnacle this morning. So, hang on a sec.
While he's doing that, just so everybody knows, these bids are supposed to be in by Tuesday Monday at 2 for the
No.
additional.
No, the Monday at 10 a.m. is bid closing. The bid opening is at 2 o'clock.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So due by 10 a.m. Monday, then we're going to open them at Steve's open them at 2. We're going to go ahead and set a special meeting request for Monday at 3. So we can, assuming we've got the contract from the convention center, so we can go ahead and approve that bid, get that ordered, and assuming that's discount still available. So just throw that on your calendar. We'll have a real quick meeting to approve one of the bids.
You said Monday at 3, Jim?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We'll do it via Zoom again. And that'll really be the only thing on the agenda at that point, is just to approve that. Whichever bid we decide to go with and get that out. We just wanted to kind of set that date. So if it is, if the quote we originally saw that had the discount on it is the winning bid, then we'll be able to get that discount in before the 15th.
Makes sense. Okay, so I sent a text to Sam and Norm with Pinnacle. That's who did the initial report for us back in, they got released in January, and asking if they would be available sometime soon to talk to us as far as about why they recommended and how many fields and whatnot. And they're more than willing to meet with us. And so I think that would be wise for us to get them on a Zoom call to help discuss, diamond versus rectangle versus number of fields and potential split between diamond versus rectangle fields for our new outdoor facility. What are y'all's feeling on having them on a Zoom call to discuss that with us?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I like that.
I think if we do that, we need, it probably needs to be something that pros is a part of too. I mean, obviously we're going to be leaning on pros pretty hard for their expertise in the area.
Well, do we not want to talk to them each individually so we can kind of get, because if pros is on the phone call as well, or on the meeting as well, I think it's wise to have to speak to them individually first. And then if we want to get them both in at the same time, because I do not want to rush into this decision. I think this is going to be one of the largest decisions we make for our complex going forward, and will help decide many things as far as our success or failure in the future with this outdoor complex.
So what do you think Norm and Gill are going to talk to us about other than their recommendation? Because they put, wouldn't they have 4 or 8 multi-surface fields, right?
They said 4 of the mixed use fields, so either diamond or rectangles, and then potentially up to an additional 4 as well. So that would put the total complex at 8 rectangle fields or 16 diamond fields, either or on that.
But their recommendation was start off with 4, correct? And then if we,
Yes.
yeah, which we know the 4 is not going to be big enough.
Yeah.
So I guess are you want to know more detail about what their thought process was?
Yeah, as far as what the thought process, because one of the things that if you look at, pros is recommending rugby size fields. And as far as any of the sports that have been on our radar, that's the first time I've heard rugby mentioned at all. And just really kind of, because eventually we're going to have to explain to our neighbors and friends in the media why we picked this. And I want to be able to say 100%, this is the best way, this is the best reason and the best compromise, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with that. I mean, if we want to try to get it on some time at our next meeting or something like that, I mean, the one thing we have to keep in mind, that's going to be open to the media. So
That's perfectly fine.
Well, I say that because you've got 2 people that come in and say, well, we only recommend 4, and then we come out here and build 12. That automatically throws that wrench in your plan there, be able to answer 100% why we did something.
Right, but if in the report initially 4 and then go up to a total of 8 is what was originally in the initial report.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. We just have to think that process out, that anything that gets thrown out there to the public is going to be open for scrutiny if we don't go with exactly what they say. And then if we choose Pro's recommendation over Pinnacle or vice versa, then that's going to come into question as well.
Right, because no matter what we do, we're going to be criticized on the decision we're going to make. That's the one guaranteed in this entire deal. Is we're going to be criticized on what we decide to do.
Yeah, and that'll happen after my 2 years is up and I roll off. So no pressure, guys. So no, I'm fine with that. We can try to get them in for our next regular meeting.
So our next, just double checking, our next meeting is going to be July the 22nd, correct?
That's correct, I believe.
Okay, so see if they're good on meeting with us on the 22nd at 1 Central.
Yeah, I mean, we probably just need to double check and make sure there's nothing. I don't know what PFG has on their agenda, but that should be fine. I think we can squeeze them both in. We may just have to limit, what we're doing from that standpoint. But
Because I've been kind of, sitting and praying and thinking about this decision we're going to be making. And I think that it would be wise to truly have a big discussion on it, kind of come to a conclusion, let it sit and marinate for another 2 weeks, and then see if we all still feel the same way going forward.
what I mean? At some point, we've got to sit down and discuss sites and where we're at with that. Because I know that's something PFGW is going to want us to kind of come to them and say, here's where we want to go with this.
Right. But if we don't know what we want to put there, it's kind of the chicken or the egg. I mean, it's all kind of, it's not a clean, easy decision. That's the problem with this, because if we have unlimited funds, unlimited space, we can put in there whatever we want. But however, there's certain design constraints that we have to work within.
If I may.
My problem with that is we've already heard from Pinnacle. We heard from PFGW. We hired PFGW and their consultants or their subs to come up with a recommendation, and they've given us that recommendation. And then we're going to say that we're going to question that. I don't seem like we just keep going in circles and not making any progress.
Well, I mean,
I say, you design for the future, for the optimum, and you build on a site that allows for growth, but you build what you can afford at present while allowing for growth for the future. If we just go with the minimum of what is adequate now and choose a site for the minimum and adequate, I think we're not being very foresighted.
right. And I agree. We need to be looking long-term on this, but it's the, diamond, if we decide to build either a diamond field or a rectangle without the interchangeability, we have to determine what we want to build. And, if you look at the recommendations inside of the Pinnacle report, don't go after the baseball that needs more than a fence of 225 feet. And so, yes, they get rid of the older kids. However, the older baseball kids don't travel as much.
Right.
And the same thing, not going after the soccer on the big kids because, just they don't travel as much. And so we truly need to have discussions, because I don't feel we're ready to make that decision at all. We haven't had nearly enough discussion as far as what and why, regardless of what Pros or Pinnacle has recommended, because they don't, they're not 100% both. I mean, they don't agree, which is fine because they're both coming in from two different angles. But the better, the more eyes we have on this, making recommendations, the better chance we have making the best long-term decision.
So, I mean, is the next step us having a meeting to discuss that before we even talk to the Pinnacle or pros? Because what I'm kind of hearing is we don't even know where we want to go and how big we want to be. So
I think we should reevaluate the recommendations from both pros and Pinnacle, why they're making the recommendations. Then the 7 of us need to get together and truly hash it out, talk, discuss, get red-faced potentially. And then once we make a decision, all walk out of the room going together as a team.
do you have any thoughts other than me and Brian?
Well, as far as, seemed like the designing for the rugby size field is a sticking point with Chris. We can go for a full size soccer field. Don't have to go with the rugby side. And also for the softball fields, if we, in our experience here locally, feel like you don't need a 300-foot design for adult, softball, we can do that on our own. We have the local knowledge and experience.
Well, here, I'm down here in Florida, obviously, and I got to go to the new Panama City site that they gave us as an example. And those multi-surface fields have up to 300-foot baseball fields. I mean, they're humongous. And I can say one of the first thing I noticed, we're here for an 8U softball, which is, 7, 8-year-olds. And the first thing I noticed, you had this big, beautiful field. You had this little bitty plastic fence going across it. And for me, that, I mean, again, I understood why it was there, but also didn't love it being there either. I kind of felt like it kind of made it look like, not a cheaper, I guess, like I know me and Jeff Ganners talked about experience, right? And that experience when you get there. So you had this huge field that, and I could somewhat see how it was soccer laid out and stuff like that because it was a multi-surface fields. But, at the same time, it was just, there was a softball field with a fence in the middle of this huge ballpark, and that probably Major League Baseball players could play on. I mean, it was that big. I mean, it was 280 to right field. I don't know that I understand why we would need a 280-foot field when we probably are never going to have baseball teams that can hit the ball that far. So why are we wasting land on something that big? Which is what that Pinnacle report suggested, putting in multi-surface fields that cover all that. And I'm sure you can shorten those somehow. I don't know that answer because obviously it depends on what the soccer field looks like.
So I believe, go ahead, Jim, sorry.
So, I mean, I guess where I'm at with it is I don't care to revisit with Pinnacle or pros, but I also think that I kind of agree with Brian saying we're kind of going in circles here because we're keep going back to them and saying, what do you suggest and why? But we haven't even started making decisions on what we need or what we want. So it's almost kind of like at some point we need to start our process and say, as a commission, we want site A with X number of fields for X sports. And then maybe it's then at that point we come back to them and say, here's what we're looking at. What does your expertise say? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Because we already know Pinnacle is going to say, well, here's our suggestion, and they're going to give us the reasons why. And then pros are going to have their suggestion, and they're going to give us their reasons why. But then it still comes back to us as a commission sitting down and saying, well, here's what we want. Because, pros and then brought up a lot of different scenarios that we had to stop and think about. And again, is that we're focusing on one sport? Are we focusing on certain types of fields? For baseball, softball, do we stop at a certain age group? And same thing for soccer. So there's a lot of things we've got to decide as a commission that maybe we're better off suited making some of those decisions and knowing the direction we're going before we bring them back in to tell us the same thing. And again, I agree with you, Chris. It gives us more knowledge and more eyes on it. But we already know what they're going to recommend to us. We may not know the 100% why, but if Pinnacle comes out and says we need multi-surface fields, but we decide we're only building soccer fields, we don't need multi-surface fields. So,
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Jim, 100%. I think it is time we start truly discussing what we want, because, like you said, we've heard recommendations from both Pinnacle and Pros, but for us as a group, what are we wanting?
so maybe it's our next meeting. We go into executive session with just the 7 of us, or 6 of us, whatever that is, and we start hashing some of that out. We kind of get it down to what sites we're looking at. We look at what we want. Let's get that down. I mean, maybe we get it down to our top 2 sites, and we get it down to that number of fields we all think we agree on, and then we bring in a Pros, and we bring in Pinnacle on separate occasions and say, hey, here's what we want. Is this feasible? Can this be successful? Are we too big? Are we too small? But then I think it gives them a more clear direction as well as where we want to go with it, because we're not coming to them with a broad statement of what do we need to do.
Yeah, that's fine. I would, when we have that meeting, I'd really like to have that in person.
I mean, that's up to the.
I mean, plus, I'd love to meet Josh.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet you all as well.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's up to the government. I can't control that, but.
Well, no, we can still meet, can't we?
Not right now.
I mean,
that's why we haven't met in person the last 2 times.
A room and a whiteboard would help so much. Just getting able to build a pros and cons list and see everything in front of us and know what we're doing.
I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that,
you want to explain why we can't.
Well, just going by the latest postings on the governor's Healthy at Work on the website there. I mean, it still tells public agencies to meet by internet to conduct business that way. Whether that's going to be changing anytime soon, I think isn't the fiscal court going to start meeting face-to-face sometime later this month, Steve?
Yes, I believe on July 27th, they're planning on having an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
Can't we just call it a group of 50 or less instead? I mean, we're talking one meeting here. We're not talking everything
Look,
in the
Kent's
future.
starting to sweat already because you're making him really question.
Yeah, I would love to meet in person, and I'm just telling you what the requirement says. I don't know that there's any hopefully it'll be changed before our next meeting where we can do that. Hopefully that will happen, but there's no clear penalty or punishment that I've seen for what happens if a public agency violates that. So, I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm not sure.
It's a low risk. You're saying,
certainly, it seems to be a low risk, and unless it's the kind of thing that we get every athletic team in the Western Kentucky area to come and cram the room to lobby for their sport being chosen, or to exert pressure on commissioners, which, that's the whole theory behind a public meeting. So you don't know how many are going to show up, but with just less than 10 in the room, it's hard to see how that's more of a risk factor than eating at a restaurant or
Because technically it's 50 or groups of 50 or less are allowed to meet now, correct? Provided you can social distance in the space, correct?
Yeah, so I think we'd have to look at if we met in person. Steve would have to see if we could get into a courtroom or something like that. Because again, the media may be there. We may have some other people want to come talk to us and keep that spread out. So we'll see what we can do if we can do that. But I think at the 27th we plan on going into the executive session and kind of starting to hash out some of this as far as where we're going with the Sportsplex and and kind of again get a more direct vision of what we want.
You said the 22nd?
I think the 27th. That's the next meeting, right? That Wednesday.
No. Our next meeting is on the 22nd.
Second,
22nd.
2-2.
Second. I'm sorry. Yeah.
27th is Monday.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I looked at it wrong. 22nd. So that meeting we'll go into executive session. Everybody make sure you can be there, please. And we'll kind of have your ideas wrote down of what you're looking at and what you think. And you know, we've got the sites that we've talked about. We'll kind of go break those down and go into them. You know, what sports we want, how many fields we're looking at, kind of all that stuff that what we want to do. And then we'll kind of come to a general consensus, and maybe we have our top 2 choices or something like that. And then we can reach back out to pros and Pinnacle, the people that did the Pinnacle report, and kind of get their ideas and say, hey, here's what like I said, here's what we're looking at. What do you think? Is it too much, too little? Is it going to be successful? Are we gambling here or not? And get a better idea.
Also, what are our target age groups in each of the sports?
Yeah, kind of what our demographics are, Brian, as far as
Right.
what you, yeah, yep.
Chris, you want to make a 2-day trip for probably to go check it out in the persons, all these complex around our city, like St. Louis, Evansville, Bowling Green.
I definitely think at some point that'd be a good thing to find a ballpark or 2 to try to go look at that, you know, maybe has turf fields or, you know, something like that. One of these newer ones. You know, what that, you know, I don't know how everybody feels about riding cars together or, you know, any of that stuff, but, you know, I agree with you, AJ, on that. It definitely would be good to kind of go to one of these ballparks and see how they're laid out and see what we're comparable to. And that, again, that could be where a pros or a Pinnacle could recommend one that would be good for us to go see. You know, if you've got one in Alabama that's 4 or 5 hours away, you know, that's something we can probably take in one day and not have to spend the night or anything.
There's one in O'Fallon, Illinois. That's about a little bit less than 3 hours away. That is a great example of a multi-sport complex: baseball, softball, soccer.
And they have the turf and everything.
Yes.
I mean, if you guys want to pay for me to come back down here next week, I can do some more extensive research down here in Florida. But
So how is the Panama City complex, Jim? Is it pretty awesome or?
yeah, I mean, it's huge, and we were there I only got to go for pool play, so it wasn't really that packed. But you know, I had an engineer with me that the first thing they noticed was the lights, and there was something really unique about the fluorescent lights they had, and are not fluorescent, the new lights, LED lights. Yeah. So, you know, one of them was like, "Oh, did you see the lights?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." But you know, the turf was really cool. It kind of rained the whole time we were playing, and they just kept playing, never stopped. You know, one thing I noticed from the older girls is they didn't have a mound to pitch off of. They just had a line in the turf. So I didn't really like that, not having a mound. I know my kid hates pitching without a mound, so that would take some getting used to. But I think somebody told me you can put temporary mounds down on that turf, so I don't know. It could have been because it's multi-surface. They don't allow those mounds to go down because that's also the soccer field, but I don't know that. So they didn't have them here. But they had some just soccer fields, and they had, you know, some that were multi-surface. I didn't go all the way back, but I bet there's probably, I mean, we were on field 3 and 6, and somebody said field 8 and 10 were way farther back. So
it's a big complex. I've looked at it a few times online. It looks pretty impressive.
But yeah, I mean, when you walk in, you got some big, you know, kind of like an arch to go through, and they got like a big baseball when you walk in and stuff like that. It's really pretty. It's literally you get off the 4-lane, and it's like you're driving to like Disney World or something. Like you just go through big arches that say "Welcome to the Sports Complex," and you know, it's all back there by itself. You know, the concession stand and bathrooms are actually kind of small. I thought, like, it kind of surprised me how small they were. I expected them for that big of a complex to be bigger. It could be that they just got so many of them they don't have to have it too big, but you for the most part, it was nice. I mean, the turf was in good shape, and the kids didn't have any problem with it. They allow teams to actually go behind that fence to get to get loose and stuff while their kids were playing. So, that was kind of a different scenario. I mean, our kids were distracted as a team walked through their gate in the middle of the game to go to the back, the back of the outfield. So like I said, other than I'm not a big fan of the temporary fence, I kind of like it better when you actually have a fence that, kids hit a home run, they want to see it go over the big wall. And in a sportsplex like this, that's never going to happen because it's always going to be those temporary fences for pretty much every age group. But yeah, it's definitely nice, and they definitely put some money into it, for sure. And they've got the World Series down here, and you probably got 10, 15,000 people down here right now. And they're using the old old one and the new one this week. So there's also one of these World Series in Nashville right now. So, again, if they can do it in Nashville, if we've got a big enough complex, we might get that in Paducah one day, which would be awesome.
I don't think we'll have the funds for that. It'd be awesome if we could, but.
Well, and I don't know. See, for softball, they don't do multiple age groups every time. So like down here they can because they got so many fields. So down here, I want to say it's 8U, 10U, and maybe 16U or something like that. But I think Nashville is just 12U and 14U. And when you come down for the World Series, you're here for 4 or 5 days. So, again, if you did just the 12U World Series, you may have 100 or 200 teams, but you spread that out over 4 or 5 days, you can make it work.
Oh yeah, especially because that's the one thing I think if we have the artificial turf and have the fields to be lit, that helps to that's a unique proposition that we have versus the many other complexes. We're basically rainouts are eliminated, and on the promoter side, the promoter really, really likes that, where there's not a chance of getting rained out. Just as long as there's no lightning, you play.
Yeah, I mean, we started at 8 o'clock and played 3 straight games yesterday, and we were done. And then we don't play again until Thursday afternoon sometime.
Okay.
And then the original schedule actually had us only playing 1 game Thursday, but I think it's changed now. They'll probably play 2 or 3 Thursday. But yeah, I mean, and you had teams from everywhere. There's Texas license plates here, and Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia. I mean, they're from all over the place up here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about the multi-service fields. I didn't hate them. I didn't love them. It was definitely something unique to look at, but I did like the turf other than the pitching thing. But as long as we can get mounds down, I'm okay with it.
What do you mean by multi-surface?
Not multi-surface, multi-sport. Sorry.
Oh, multi-sport. Okay. All right.
But yeah, as long as we can get a pitching rubber down for the pitchers, I'm okay with the turf from that standpoint. Like I said, I just know most of my pitchers hate not having a mound to push off of. But again, may just be something to get used to. So, okay. Anything else for new business or old business that we need to discuss? All
So
right.
we're planning on the next meeting having a true discussion on what we want to build.
We will go into executive session, yes, and have that conversation. So we'll start that process. Obviously, if we can do it live, we'll get to meet Josh and get some whiteboards up so we can write everything down. And Josh will buy us lunch since it's his first live meeting.
That's how it works, Josh. Welcome to the group.
You have to buy lunch or you become secretary and do all the minutes. Megan got secretary, so.
Lunch it is.
Lunch is a better deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope everyone likes burgers.
So, all right. Well, if no other old or new business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion by Chris. Can I get a second?
I will second.
Second by Josh. Roll call. Megan,
Yes.
Josh,
Yeah.
Brian,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
and Chris.